Hello, welcome to FNRM 5131 for Fall 2019. I'm Andy Jenks, one of the instructors in the class, and my colleague Paul Bolstead is the other instructor. We have offices in Green Hall. Paul's in 301J, I'm in 215 Green, and we have email, and that's probably the best way to reach us is at pbolstead@umn.edu or ajenks@umn.edu. I also have office hours from 12 to 1:50 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and online office hours from 8 to 9 on Wednesdays via Google Hangouts. Paul's office hours are variable, so contact him to arrange a time to meet. Now, space is everywhere, so there's a wide variety of spatial problems that exist in our worlds. We've got some examples here that you could take a look at. If you bring up the PDF version of this on the web page, you could take a look at the Gulf oil spill, about the hurricanes, about congressional redistricting, but space is everywhere, and so are spatial problems. So what we're trying to do is to teach you how to solve spatial problems, how to understand the tools to help organize and solve spatial problems. So the objectives for this particular video, though, are just to go through mechanics and grading and maybe touch on a tiny bit on content, but the main focus is on the mechanics and grading of the class. Now, what we're trying to do conceptually is to help you move towards some higher order skills. So we're working with the base information about GIS and concepts in GIS and how you apply those tools so that you can use that in some sort of analysis or some synthesis in your job or in your later education or your career. And there's a wide variety of applications for GIS, both in business, commerce, industry, government, and many different careers. GIS is a building block type of tool. Everybody needs a map, basically. And the course is offered on an online version and an in-person version, and they're the same material, the same text, the same questions, everything's the same. It was just we're trying to reach out to people that want to actually have someone in person talk about the concepts or have an online video version of the material. And it's all based around a textbook which Paul wrote for this class. And Paul and I have been teaching this course, team teaching this course for the last 20 years or so. And Paul wrote the textbook quite a few years ago from the material in the class, and it's the center of the class, and it's used at about 450 colleges and universities around the world. So it's a widely accepted basic concepts of GIS. And we've got lab exercises which help apply those concepts, which is great, but the core of the course is the textbook, and the labs then help you understand how those are applied. A lot of the students really like the labs because they're fun to do, but it's the concepts that are really the important part of the learning here, because the technology changes from year to year, job to job, but the concepts stay pretty solid, and if you have a good understanding of them, which is what the textbook helps you, that you'll be well served for your future endeavors. Now, the students can access the class material online or in person. It doesn't matter. You can switch back and forth. You can come to the in-person class, you can do the online, you can go back and forth. It doesn't really matter. It's the same material. It's whatever is best for you to understand the material and complete the exercises and tests and so on. Now, if you do use the online and then come into the in-person or vice versa, or you're registered for the online and you want to do the in-person or vice versa, you don't need to change your registration. Just show up, get the material in, I'll report your grade back to whatever you're registered to. Now, the core of the class and what the most of the test material is centered around is the fundamentals of GIS, the textbook, the 6th edition. So you want to get the 6th edition and understand this. This is what the center of the course is. And this is where we're talking about the concepts. The labs are where we apply the concepts, but you have to understand the concept before you can really talk about applying it. So it's the textbook that is the important, and get the 6th edition. There's many changes from the 5th or the 4th or the 3rd edition, so get the right edition. Now, the software that we use is ArcGIS Pro. That's the most current software from Esri, the leading vendor of GIS software worldwide. Now there's other GIS software that's available we'll talk about in class. They're very good, but the ArcGIS or Esri software is the one that's most widely acceptable, used with business, commerce, industry, for all sorts of government entities, and that it's what our students have been requesting most over the years. We've tried to offer some other software, some open source, some good open source software. The students really have been asking consistently for the ArcGIS, so that's what we're focusing our efforts on. We're using the most current one, ArcGIS Pro. There are earlier versions which we're happy to help you with, but ArcGIS Pro is the one you need to learn and the one we use for the class. Now, in order to use that, you can come into Skoke 35. That's our main teaching lab in Skoke Hall on the St. Paul campus, and that's where we have our in-person labs. And we have in-person labs primarily on Wednesdays and Thursdays. There are other labs around the university that have ArcGIS Pro installed. You could work there, check the lab information for those other computer labs. But Skoke 35 and our sister lab up in 210A in Green are our main teaching on the St. Paul campus. Now, many students choose to use the software from the virtual network. Now, the virtual network allows you, with a computer from wherever, over the internet, with a browser, to actually tap into the university computer network and run ArcGIS Pro on a university computer remotely through your browser. So it's a virtual connection. Now, this allows people with the Mac or Windows computers to get into a very powerful dedicated university computer to do their work. And I've got quick start instructions on the website on how to understand all this, and we'll have other videos explaining that. But basically, you get a very fast Windows computer this way. The advantage of this virtual network is that it lets the Mac users access the system, because there isn't a native version of the software that runs on the Mac computer. It's a ArcGIS is a Windows-only software. Now, class mechanics. We have lectures and labs every week and tests every couple of weeks, and they cover the reading lecture topics. Now, the reading is the core of the material. The lecture topics support the reading and help explain the reading, but the basics are every couple of weeks. There's 15 chapters in the book. We basically have every 3 chapters we have a test. And it's important that you do the reading in advance of the lectures, whether you watch the lecture online or whether you come to the lecture in person or both. Please do the reading for that week ahead of time. And the materials that explain all this are on the website. The website is what drives our whole class. We use Canvas, but we use Canvas as a support for our website. Now, this is our main page on our website. You can see our links to the syllabus and our secondary lab page, but it explains week by week what to do. So this is the first week. These are the lectures and labs. There's some supplemental information, and here's the point links to the lab page. And there's also a syllabus that you can link to from this page. And here's the syllabus that explains a lot of the class, mechanics and material. Now, this is our second page. If you go to this link here, this lab page, you can see that it brings up our secondary page, which is where all our lab material is. And it has some quick start information that explains how you start ArcGIS or install it on your home computer or access it through the lab or through the Citrix. You have lots of choices, and you can mix and match. And then each lab is explained on the next line, so that each lab is explained line by line. So here's the instructions for the lab and some summary overheads. And then there's videos that explain some of the specific tasks that exist in the lab. And then there's the data for the lab. Now, the data for the lab is also directly available on an L drive, which you've been issued by your registration. So there's a direct way to access the data, and this is sort of a backup where you can download and unzip the data. But the instructions, so what you need each lab time is read the instructions and the summary and grab the data or get the data from the online resource. So the class mechanics, to sort of wrap up here, we have reading quizzes, we have assignments, primarily labs and homeworks. There's some forums where you can ask questions and other students can answer and chat about it. And there's online tests, and that's the main sort of way Canvas works for us. Here's our main Canvas page. that explains the class, the center of it, and each week it's organized by week. The modules are by week. There's reading quizzes for that week. There's the places you leave your lab assignments, in Dropbox for your lab. You're primarily turning in PDFs as you do your lab assignments. You're making maps and you're turning them in PDFs, and you're taking the tests, and these are where the links for the tests are. The tests are available and open when they're scheduled. And incidentally, the tests are scheduled for all day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they're 3 chances, highest score. So it's quite an interesting, flexible way to take the tests. Now the Dropbox, where you're dropping off your work for each assignment, you attach each of the PDFs to this Dropbox and submit the assignment. So you have to put all your PDFs in one Dropbox and submit it. You don't submit them one at a time. So reminder, labs are due on Friday, the week after the assignment. So the first lab is due a week from in the end of the second week, and so on throughout. So you basically have 10 days or so to do each of the labs. However, we've got to have some penalties, because if the worst thing you can do in the class is get behind. There's a lot of material both in lab and reading, and getting behind is a big problem. So we're really trying to help you stay on track with the schedule of the class. But if there are problems, let us know in advance. We can work with problems, but we need to know ahead of time so we can work with you. Now, grades, how you follow your grades, please on Canvas, follow the grades tab. You can see your grades for the class, and you get an idea of how you're completing the work. You want to make sure you're always considering the unchecking this, so you're calculating the grades based on the entire course rather than just what you've turned in. So you're paying attention to that checkbox. That's important to understand. Now, the class is set up with labs being about 1/3 of the class. There's a semester project that continues throughout the project with 4 pieces that you work on throughout the course. Then there's the tests, which are 44% of it, and there's some homework, some quizzes, so you get a little idea of the breakout of the class. There's some optional work, so if you get a little behind in some of your points, don't do quite as well on an exam or something, that you're able to do some extra lab, extra homework, some optional work to actually get some additional credit in the class. Now, this is the grading scale. We don't give an A-. So if you get a 90 or above, you get an A. The vast majority of students get A's and B's in the class, because it's just about putting your time in, putting the work in, getting it in, accumulating your points. It's about what you put into the class here, but there's a lot of work, so don't get behind on the reading, don't get behind on the assignments. And this is the scale we use in our grading scale. So this completes this video. Thank you very much.